Hello everyone. I am in a very special place right now. I'm in a place called Nine Muses, which is where my mother is living right now. It is in Idaho, and it's really interesting to see like a whole different experience right now. And I brought my mom some groceries and some things that she needed, and I'm here with her for now at this time. And I am so grateful. And I always like to start with extending my thanks and my gratitude. I always like to start with a prayer. And so I'd like to extend my gratitude to the spirits of land and place that are here in Idaho. And I am so grateful, great spirit and great mystery, for this opportunity to be a hollow little bone. And I ask that whatever comes through in all our conversations, that they become healing conversations. We would really like to have even more healing conversations if we could. So please guide and assist us at this time. And we're praying and asking and intending great mystery, that all of life is able to come together in a healing way, in a healing manner. We ask for your help and that you will help all of us because we need your help. Thank you so much, Great Mystery. We invite you into this in all our conversations. Oh, amen. And so I was thinking about my grandmother. Today is my grandmother's birthday, and she and my mother's birthdays are really close together. So my grandmother's birthday is on the 27th, and my mother's is on the 23rd. So I'm really grateful to have my mother, one of my mothers. I had two mothers, and I still have one, and so I'm really grateful that I have this mother in the world, and that I can see her and feel her and be with her, and I always feel my other mother, Barbara, with me all of the time. So I have my Matilda mom and my Barbara mom, and then I had my Charlotte grandmother, and today is her birthday. And I was thinking about, there's this really beautiful book called Rag and Bone Shop of the Heart, and it is an anthology of poetry edited by Robert Bly, James Hillman, and Michael Meade, all of who I hold in the highest respect and admiration and regard. And it's really a book for boys and for men. But any poetry book is just too mesmerizing for me to not explore. and I am always interested in how I can best support the men in my life and the men that I love, and my students who are men. And this is a favorite book of mine. It ended up being a favorite. And there is this writing that James Hillman did in one of the chapters. And this is called In Touch with Invisible Voices. And I just thought, oh, this is really occurring to me today with my grandmother. And but I think for all of us, that all of us were really produced by our ancestors. Like all of us came here from our ancestors. We are not only a product of our ancestors, but we are also like our ancestors dreaming. Like whatever our ancestors were dreaming, we are the product of that dream. And so, how do we come to a place where we can be the very best of them, or bring the very best of them? How can we express what it is that is true of us and authentic of us, but also what is true of their dreaming? Because what I know is, I know that I believe that most of our ancestors really dreamed of a better world for us, for all of us, and really dreamed us into the world. So I think about this In Touch with Invisible Voices, and I think about them, but I also think about spirit, the spirit that moves throughout all of life and moves through us. And we've been talking about that in our conversations. So he says, moments come when we feel outside time, seized by longing, moved by an image, in touch with invisible voices. We realize that we do not live in one world only. As Rilke says, we are grasped by what we cannot grasp. We are grasped by what we cannot grasp. And James Wright says, the air fills with delicate creatures from the other world. The air fills with delicate creatures from the other world. Something beyond life lives within life and calls the soul. Several of these following poems in the book warn about not remembering this fact. I don't hear these voices if I am, as Wright says, lost in myself. The gaze beyond narrows a tunnel vision inward, and we miss what else there might be. Repair of the soul, the damage I have done to myself, as Kabir says, and the focus on the job at hand are only half. A person has metaphysical tasks too. Unless the spirit ventures toward the invisible, a person will not be able to perform the daily round with purpose. They will have little joy, only duty and rebelliousness. The deepest cause of our discontent and of our confused yearnings is the loss of paradise. The human soul needs anchoring in something beyond itself, in that vision which is the ground of all initiations, a vision which hints that life on earth reflects ideals of perfection. And so I really appreciate we're grasped by what we cannot grasp. Moments come when we feel outside time, seized by longing, moved by an image, in touch with invisible voices. And so I'm feeling that today with my grandmother, but also with all of my ancestors. I've been researching my genealogy and exploring that, and exploring many expressions of identity and how that works. But as that happens, we're also faced with the invisible ones, with the ancestors, in addition to the visible ones, and the ones still living and the ones still here on earth. And so one of the things that I asked myself was, well, how do I want to honor my grandmother? And there's a really beautiful prayer that I've heard from the Judaic tradition, which talks about how we remember them. We remember them in the rising of the sun, and we remember them in the setting of the sun, and we remember them. And so each time that I bring that poem or that prayer forward for my students, it really is about remembering those who've come before. So, how do we celebrate our ancestors and celebrate that they dreamed us? And what they want is they want the very best of themselves to come through us. So if they want the very best of themselves to come through us, how do we bring that best? How do we acknowledge, and not to say we have to be the best all the time. I think that leads to burnout and to some other not really very helpful or beneficial things. But what I do know is that what we can do is we can extend just a simple gratitude for our life, that they gave us life. I mean, what are the odds, right? There's like mastodons, there's all these things, cruising, and our ancestors were trying to survive under absolutely harrowing circumstances time and time and time again. And somehow we landed a body. Like that just blows my mind. Like, I landed a body. How did that possibly happen? And what were the odds, with my ancestors being who they were, and how things like, wow, what a miracle, what a grace, what a blessing that I'm alive and that I get to be here in this time. And this is a sacred time. And so I think about that. And I also think about that the ancestors that I knew and some of them that I don't. And I mean, the interesting thing is that, now I'm having this opportunity to recognize that I have family or ancestors or people that I'm, that I was unaware of. And so as you do genealogy research, you find a lot of really amazing surprises and things, that you thought that weren't true, and things that you didn't think that are true, and things that you thought that are, like, validated, and things that you thought that are like, wow, I guess that wasn't a thing. But it's hard to say because those people have moved on. So how do you really hear the whole truth? Like the whole truth. And the whole truth, I think it resides in between. And I think that sometimes the facts don't really care about the truth. they're not really interested in the truth. And I think that it's important that we're able to balance our facts and the physical, also with this intelligence, with this deep intelligence of the mystery, and of the divine or of the sublime or of the invisible. Um, and I was thinking about my grandmother today, and I was thinking about how much I loved her. I adored. Actually, I've adored all of my grandparents, um, and I adored my grandmother. And she taught me so many things that she didn't even know she was teaching me. And I think that's so interesting. Like, she taught me all of these things that she didn't even know she was teaching me. And so I thought, when she was still living, she's crossed now for several years, and you know, I thought I needed to write her a letter to thank her. And so it was really interesting because I sat down in a reflective place, and I just began thinking of the things that I carry that she gave me, or things that my mother carries that she gave my mother. And my grandmother was a powerful force. Like, nobody messed with her. And she was kind. So if you came to dinner and she, felt good about you and she wanted you to come to her home again, she would always invite you back. And she would do it verbally. I would love to have, please, you're welcome here, and I'd love to have you, return. And she carried a nobility that I just had so much admiration for. But she would also do this thing where if she was not interested in having you back, she wouldn't invite you. So you wouldn't even know, except that everyone would know who knew her. So it was just this really, like, this interesting way that, where she had her limits and her boundaries, but she was also a person of power, and she had this way of doing it, I always saw her as being very kind, but also having this compassion that people could feel, and also this clarity. And so I really, just her simple strength. So I ended up writing her this letter, and it was a very long letter. and